Hey everybody, welcome to Nexus at Night, your weekly Vanguard podcast brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/Nexus at Night. I will eventually run out of words to emphasize in that order, but I'm Atlas.
I'm Matt.
I'm Root Beer.
It's just like a band doing the same song in concert where they're like, we're going to emphasize this word instead of this word, and it sounds a little different, and I'm going to run out of shit at a certain point. But,
I believe it.
Yep. I'm drunk on a Tuesday, and so today we're talking about, after a tweet from Different Fight back on a few days ago, he retweeted something from the Pokemon Twitter account, which is for the Pokemon TCG, a trainer's toolkit. So each toolkit comes packed with over 50 useful cards to power up your deck, over 100 energy cards, 4 booster packs, and more. And then he retweeted it and said, I'd love a Vanguard product like this down the line, a box with each overtrigger, 4 of each nation's PG, X number of staples for each nation, and triggers for all nations. Feel like now would be a perfect time to explore this space. So we're going to talk about how Bushiroad has handled stuff like this in the past and what they could do in the future for it to not suck. So
yeah,
let's get into it.
Also talking about like what other TCGs have done with similar types of products, so we have comparison points.
Mm-hmm. That's a good thing because you got Yu-Gi-Oh from me, Magic from Matt, and whatever the hell else.
Yeah. See, I was also just comparing Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I know Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had structure decks that were, like, fairly competitive out the box.
Yeah, definitely. Do we want to...
Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh, sorry, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, Yu-Gi-Oh! Also has, like, tons of, like, reprint products.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes slower than they need. But, it's like, they'll have, like, Gold Series or something like that. Just basically, like, put more of, like, cards that are ridiculously expensive and more fans, and then they'll often do reprints and structure decks, although not recently in TCG. In fact, have been removing those structure decks in TCG.
What, the thing where they're like, instead of Twin Twisters, we're going to have it be Mystical Space Typhoon. Because fuck you. As like a...
Well, no, so Twin Twisters is not expensive, right?
I know,
so, like,
but that was just...
In the upcoming... I think in one of the structure decks in OCG, there's Lightning Storm and Infinite Impermanence. Like, they're going to replace that with Twin Twister and Dark Red.
Yeah, so Lightning Storm being a Raigeki or Harpy's Feather Duster, depending on what you want to. And,
if you have nothing in play, right?
Yeah, and then Infinite Impermanence is a trap you can play from hand that, like, negates the effect of an opponent's thing. And then
in the same column.
Yeah, and can also shut something off in that column too. So
it's very funny when people activate something in the Imperm column.
By accident, yeah. Definitely. So they went from that to like Twin Twister, which was discard 1, pop 2, back row, and Dark Roller No More, which is a negate on the opponent's thing, but it's a normal spell card, and you can't do damage the turn you do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as good, but that's...
Or like, yeah, so like if they reprint Droplet in OCG, we're just going to replace with Dark Roller again.
Oh, Forbidden Droplet. I remember when I was like trying to build a deck for like somewhat cheap, and I was walking around Frankensons here in SoCal, and I didn't know how much Forbidden Droplet cost. So I was walking around being like, can't be more than like, what, $15? And they're like, yeah, it's like 90. We're like, oh.
Oh man, it was cheap at that time too, dang.
That was the cheap side? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that card's just ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. So what everyone suggested to me was just get Dark Roller No More. Like, it's $1.
So, yeah, the difference is, so Dark Roller says you can't deal damage that turn.
Mm-hmm.
But Forbidden Droplet does not have that text.
Yes, but you do have to discard stuff to get the.
You can also sack stuff on field.
True.
So you can like you know that dumb shit when people like make chains, like you'll be like, all right, I'm gonna like do this, right? And you're like, I'm gonna activate my effect, and you're like, okay, Droplet sack it. It's really stupid. I'll do all the things actually.
And then you're just like, I'm just gonna droplet off the end of that, and yeah, okay, we're done.
And yeah, I just gained a ton of value.
Yeah.
Yeah, droplet has just some really yeah, it's like a minus, but you don't actually minus anything in the activation of droplet.
It's a minus on paper.
It's definitely written as attempting to be a minus.
Yeah.
But it says quick play on it, so.
Well, what are you gonna do? So, what Yu-Gi-Oh has done in the past, like you mentioned Gold Series, which is for the most part a reprint set, right? Occasionally you'll have new stuff in there. I remember the first one had Crush Card Virus for the first time outside of a, winning championship promo.
God, good old Crush Card Virus.
And it was like also ridiculously hard to find anyway.
Yeah.
So this is pre-errata Crush Card Virus, where it was like,
I remember seeing Crush Card Viruses in stores for like ridiculous amounts of money.
Oh, I have a little story for that. So,
I think you told this one.
What about almost paying for the Crush Card Virus and then it got banned?
Yeah.
And then the guy getting pissed off? Damn it. Alright. Well, I don't know. We've been around almost 5 years. Not everyone's going to listen to every episode. Long story short, almost paid for the thing. Found out it got banned. Guy was super pissed at me. The end.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
But like Crush Card is just credits obviously getting banned, right?
Well, I didn't know. I was like 14. What do you want from me?
Card like resolves and ends the game. It's very cool. Because back then, Crush Card instead of so Crush Card back then you got to look at the next 3 draw steps. It's been errated now.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as stupid as far as that goes.
Yeah, but you could randomly be like, oh, you drew something over 1500 attack, put it in the graveyard. Fuck
yeah. So before now, I think so. That's what it did before. But now I think your opponent like destroys 3 of the monsters in their deck with 1500 or more attack.
So wouldn't that just be a plus for them because they're like, oh, thanks.
Right. So your opponent gets to choose, so it's like super bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, what are you gonna do? In any case, I think Gold Series, something like Gold Series would be nice for Vanguard, which they already kind of do with Revival Collection. Where like once a year you get this thing, and they're like, all right, all this stuff that you liked playing, or maybe something like Cursed Eye Raven, which it's been years but it's still relevant, is now in here again. So it's just more cards in the circulation, and not in people's decks, in their common boxes that they've forgotten about, or sitting in a display case somewhere.
I don't actually know if I think that the whatever a Vanguard kind of toolkit should be. Like, I don't know if it should actually include the over triggers, but it should definitely include all the PGs.
Yeah, like triggers and PGs.
PGs should not be something people are gated by.
Yeah, easy. I mean, I feel like as long as over triggers are like part of the game, because they did put out a survey recently asking people's opinions on it. I would hope everyone was either indifferent or hated them, but
Just hate them. No, don't be indifferent. Just hate them.
yeah, well, I mean, if everyone either hates it or doesn't care, that's probably a good indication for them that nobody actually wants over triggers in English.
No, they'll read it if people don't mind them.
Yeah.
True.
But here's the thing. You only need one. If they never print any again, we were talking about this in the already way too many episodes we've done about over triggers. If it never comes up again, then they just don't have to do anything. But that also screws over people who are trying to get into the game for the first time. And you're like, fuck, the thing I want to play for my nation is like, $15 or more the further you get away from set 1. On the plus side, the trial decks all come with, the vanilla over triggers where it's doubled up, and so that's something. You can at least play with that.
I just think that, as long as over triggers are going to be a thing, I think you should have the option of being able to play your nation trigger and not have to rely on the Cray Elemental one if you didn't want it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I imagine, whatever this special product would be that it should include like the over trigger for each nation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like sets of each trigger, over trigger, PGs for sure. And then the question is after that, like, what will we put in it?
And we're talking about the PGs that are free at 2 or 1 or less card in hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Like the set PGs, not just vanillas, because you could get those from TDs already.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not really sure what you want to put in there. I assume, like, the easy way to do it would be you print the last ride line. That, like, so, for example, you had the Seraph Snow comes in the TD, Orpheus comes in the set. Now we have this new one with the Meteor where it looks like a deleter. I feel like if you're going to do this down the line, then you would reprint the Orpheus ride line, for example.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because one thing that's important to note is that Different Fight pitched this to be, like, further down the line, not, like, this soon after the D-Series reboot just started. So we're talking about, like, maybe a year or so later.
Yeah.
I feel like by that point, that if we're doing some sort of complete nation box to get people into the game for the first time, or for people who are like interested in trying new things, that they could probably just print like all of the relevant ride lines for the nation. So like just give you play sets of each ride line and maybe some generic cards that could theoretically work with all the decks. Like, I'm thinking of some sort of combination between like the legend decks that we've had in the past and it plus like promos and stuff. I don't know if we want to do the Yu-Gi-Oh thing where they start shoving world premieres into special sets, but
God, I hope they don't do that. I know for Yu-Gi-Oh has this like habit of whenever they reprint an expensive card, that's when it's going to get hit on the ban list. I'm not sure why they do that, but it's a thing that they do.
So because the expensive cards get people to buy the product, right? So like a really good example is Yu-Gi-Oh just had a new ban list.
Yeah.
Nadir Servant is a card that people want hit because not because the card's like busted like at the current moment necessarily, but because the card's just really freaking obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
But the card's basically like a +3, right? So like
Dear Servant, hang on, I'm googling it. Okay,
it's
found
extra
it.
foolish. Search for Dogmatica.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this card's just incredibly obnoxious. It adds you get Ecclesia, then Ecclesia, blah 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 blah. So they're not going to hit it. They're not, even if they did restrict Nadir Servant, they're definitely not doing it now because they haven't reprinted it yet. And that's not a joke, even though it might sound like one. It's just actually the case, right? They're just not going to.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's just kind of like how Konami operates. And Konami's usually pretty does this consistently. So it's not like a surprising thing, I don't think.
Oh, well, yeah, they're consistent about it, but it's something consistent that I don't like. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, good, you punched me in the face again. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Like, so, yeah. I don't.
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah, I would appreciate it. One thing that's interesting is people started bringing up like how much would it cost, and
specifically, Bushi Matt brought up what the price point would be.
Yes, so he goes, what kind of price point would this be reasonable at? And then at Ezel Senpai goes, I didn't expect to get this far. So elite trainer boxes are normally around $40. I say between 20 and 50 being a good range. There could be 5 to 6 nation-based boxes with their respective overtrigger, a set of PGs. Exclusive sleeves, that's something I didn't think of, for the main ride deck and promos.
Yeah, I don't know why you didn't think of that. They do that for every special set.
I don't know. I'm drunk. I said that at the beginning.
One interesting thing related to this is put the triggers in there. Doesn't matter if people think they're kind of extra, but like Put some triggers in there.
Yeah, like at the very least, these whatever this theoretical product would be should contain enough cards to actually build a deck. That's something that really annoyed me with the Vanguard set. Because I was looking back at old Special Series releases, and God, the V Special Series, these are all terrible value. Holy shit. Majesty Lord Blaster is basically a Legend deck, but costs twice as much. And then the Daigo set costs the same as a Legend deck, but only comes with 15 cards.
Seriously?
Cool.
Damn.
Yeah.
I didn't know it cost that much. I knew it was only the 15, but Jesus,
Yeah,
dude.
it's 3,500 yen, the same as a Legend deck.
Very cool.
And see, that's the thing, is Legend decks came with all the same things, whereas it had a storage box, which we didn't get in English, a deck holder, and a pack of 70 sleeves, which we also didn't get in English for the Legend decks. I believe we got it in the English version of Vanguard, because they finally pulled their heads out of their butts for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really lame that, Majesty Lord Blaster costs apparently $65 according to the comment section on the wiki page.
Yeah.
But, just came with your standard 50-card deck, deck holder and sleeves, just like Legend decks in the past. So yeah, I think because this was a problem in V, we should specify that a new special product for D series for a nation box should definitely have enough cards to actually construct a deck.
Yeah. That also begs the question of if this ends up being a playable deck, how broken do you want
I
it to
actually
be?
don't think it itself needs to have enough cards to construct a deck. It plus its TD needs to construct a deck.
Mm.
A deck with real cards in it.
Well, especially if a TD, if they're supposed to be $4, right? You know?
Right.
So, if anything, the TD just becomes the add-on.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends on what they do with it, because, there are a lot of different ride lines already, even in the nation. So if they were, let's go with your example, if they made a Brant Gate Nation box that had Orphis in it, I would want it to have enough cards to construct the deck, because otherwise, you could, even if it's just a mid-tier deck, that's fine. You can print broken support in the set still so that people will buy the sets. I don't think any of the Legend decks were all that strong out of the box. I'm not sure about the Majesty Lord Blaster set. I know Majesty Lord Blaster made it into the meta at a decent place, but I can't remember if that's just with the deck out of the box or if you had to do stuff to it.
Let's see. I hate when you try and search it and it gives you the card just by itself. There it is. Special deck set, Majesty Lord Blaster. I think it was at least somewhat maybe not as is. I know that was the thing with Yu-Gi-Oh too, where the dinosaur structure deck was, you could pretty much just take that to a regional and do okay at least.
There's the Monarch one where you just buy 3 of that and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone remember that brief period in 2020 where Majesty Lord Blaster was kind of relevant?
I remember it was a week, maybe 2. It was not
Kind
good.
of? I don't know. We were inside for most of the year. I don't really remember most of it.
Because, I know for the old, Ren, Kai, and Aichi Legend decks, I think the Ren Legend deck was probably the only one that was meta out of the box, and that was purely because of Phantom Blaster Diablo.
That thing left such destruction in its wake. I think I still have Vietnam flashbacks sometimes to, oh, I destroyed your board, now you can't guard and crit. Cool.
Yeah, because this came out before G Guardian, so Phantom Blaster Diablo could carry the deck on its own pretty easily. I think the Kai Legend deck was completely terrible out of the box. I'm pretty sure most people ditch the actual. Like, at most, you bought it for reprints of the Ace because the Ace was stupidly expensive at the time.
Yeah.
I think you maybe used the Novell Stride, but then you just played it with the Cross Legion and nobody touched the Legend.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Kai Legend deck was the least relevant out of box. And, like, between the three, I think the IQ Legend deck is probably the most balanced out of the box. It's, like, a competent deck, has pretty good strides in it, but you still need to upgrade it with main set stuff like Gancelot and the Blaster Lu.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and the Floco crit, obviously.
Of course. Oh, the
Yeah, so I
Floco
think
crit.
you want to aim for something like the IQ Legend deck, where, like, out of the box you have a competent deck that could be upgraded with the sets so that, you know, they keep selling product.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's probably what I would aim for. Do you guys agree?
I agree, but also knowing that they've added a third ride line to the sets proper, I would hope that this gives them enough room to add enough, like, just enough new cards for, you know, insert the neglected ride line here, Snow or Orfist, whichever one they decide to leave by the wayside, probably the former.
No, I imagine they would keep supporting, like, the start deck archetype, because that's probably the one they expect more people to have. Like, start decks are, like, how people get into the game. I think it's important for them to keep supporting them consistently so that people just getting into the game can have their start decks continue to be relevant. So, if anything, I would imagine them leaving Orphis behind first for the new Meteor Lady.
That would probably cause a bunch of people obsessed with Link Joker to be super sad. Like, the amount of fanboys you would piss off would be palpable. For that in particular. I'm not sure you have the same thing with something like Zorga or Barrow Magnus. Like, I don't think there's as much of a simp nation for that as there is for Orphist.
Right.
But still, like, I would hope that if you're gonna take the time to make this special set, to use that to give yourself breathing room in terms of support. We've talked about how, like, it gets harder and harder to support more things with just one card, the more different your mechanics are, which is why I hope this Meteor thing has something to do with either the prison or the world mechanic. But if they don't, then they might have to do something like this in order to not be just like, okay, you get one card, and you're like, this sucks, and they're like, tough luck.
Yeah. Also, like, something like... Also, like, a special product like this could be a way to stagger releases between sets so that we have a bit of time for the meta to develop a little more.
Yeah. Or they could just start doing Lyrical Monasterio stuff, and then that makes you happy, and then...
Like, we can save that rant for another time, but... Yeah. Also, like, how do we feel about things like deck sleeves and deck holders? Because that has been included in all of their special products in the past. It took all the way until the Majesty Lord Blaster set for us to get all of that stuff in English, but, you know, like, a deck holder, pack of 70 sleeves. I don't know if we need storage boxes. Maybe?
I don't know, storage boxes feel kind of moot.
Yeah.
For the
I
most
mean, I guess
part.
that's something where they could just sell the completed product inside the storage box, and then...
Yeah, if they wanted
you know.
to. I feel like that'd be expensive for them to produce, though. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I assume that's why we never got them in English for the Legend decks, but they finally figured it out, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I liked the little ride line sleeves that they included as box toppers with that first set, and I want more of them, but this would be a good place to put those.
Yeah.
Because I have pink ones on my Bruce deck, and I don't want pink ones. I want not pink. Purple would be nice, or red. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, things like power markers. That would be nice.
Oh, yeah.
I think those were included in the Legend deck. I feel like because of all of the various different things that you gotta keep track of, like power gains, crits, things like that. Like, there's a lot of space for Bushiroad that print extra accessories for keeping track of that thing that they haven't really done yet. So, a nation box that has, like, nation-themed sleeves, either like a set of dice or markers themed after your nation so that you can keep track of power gains like that.
Yeah. I know Buddy Fight, didn't it have like a thing for your life bar where it was this little cardboard sleeve thing? I imagine you could do something like that. Like, for example, playing Zorga, you have a lot of, like, random 5k buffs. Like, I was playing with Nexus Core's Gabe IRL a few days ago, and instead of taking dice and using it, turning it to the number 5 for this thing as a 5k buff, because everything is in increments of 5k buffs, he literally had this Scrooge McDuck vault, basically, of dice that he would reach his greasy hand into. It's not greasy. And put it on, like, put one dice equals 5,000, and he would just stick it on whatever card, which is, useful, but also kind of sad. Like, just 8675309. That's what I got on board right now. Ask for Jenny, and you lose, and that's how that works. But I think if they had maybe something like that little cardboard sleeve for this column, for this row, something like that would be good, especially with Persona Ride being a thing. Just anything that can keep track of power, that can last for at least a little bit of time. Because sometimes just those, like, little power marker things just look like ass, and then they disintegrate after however many playthroughs. Like, imaginary gift markers were sleeved for a long time, but not a lot of them looked very cool. I feel like that was a missed opportunity. You just had, like, okay, this is yellow, and that's it.
The Daiko set did come with a set of 3 dice.
That's nice. Were they at least, like, cool looking, or was it just, here's, like, 3 things you get in, like, your bicycle cards?
Yeah. It's a blue dice with the Royal Paladin symbol as the 1.
Okay, that's something, at least.
Yeah. That's something, yeah, see, the biggest problem is trying to figure out, like, aside from your essentials of, like, copies of each ride line, triggers, and PGs, like, what main deck cards would you be putting in there? Because there aren't any, like, easily translated staples, like, say, the Grade 3 Searchers / Stride Fodders from previous eras of the game.
Oh, like something that can fit in anything?
Yeah, that just has, like, a generically good benefit.
I don't know.
Although I say that, and, like, considering how many decks rely on Persona writing, just having a generic Grade 3 Searcher is actually not terrible.
Having a generic Grade 3 Searcher might be a little broken in this era.
Maybe.
Like, even if it's just the check top 5 thing, get your guy, like, that would do so much for a lot of decks.
Yeah, which I feel like that's on Bushiroad for... Like, I know they needed to use Persona Ride as a mechanic to, like, balance it. I feel like maybe they could have explored better ways to do it. I'm still very salty about how bad Hexa Orb is.
Oh. I think that's just more a problem of Hexa Orb, not so much the mechanic.
Yeah. Not the mechanic, it's just, like, cards like Hexa Orb.
Oh, right.
I feel like, I feel like they haven't found exactly the right balance. I think Magnolia is probably a better place where you have, like, a version of the skill and then it improves when you Persona Ride. So I feel like I'd rather go in the direction of Magnolia rather than you don't get your skill at all unless you Persona Ride. Which they've done for a number of cards now. I think I'd rather have, like, weaker version of skill and then gets better when you Persona Ride.
I hope they, like, in the Festival Collection, Stoicheia got this dragon that's like on hit, retire it, and then get a grade 3 from drop into hand, which is helpful. And
but Stoicheia is like the milling nation, so that really only works for them.
Yeah, but like, just something to recycle, like you got Protobulb in Bruce, and I assume that the one where it looks like Baramagnus is getting an exorcism. You can recycle it, although that deck doesn't really run other copies of itself anyway. You just don't Persona Ride.
I mean, I think people do run the copies of Baramagnus, they just don't Persona Ride because lol.
No, I'm serious. Like, I'm seeing deck lists with only one, and that's it.
Really?
I'm not even kidding.
Most of the topic deck lists I've seen out of Japan still run the other 3.
Just something that I'm not seeing on like people's deck lists online. Maybe it's like a new trend where they're just like, this is what we're gonna do, and you don't Persona Ride anyway, so why bother? And you're like,
maybe.
I guess. I mean, there's some merit to it where you, like, instead of that, you can just run more soul charging stuff, and then.
See, because I'm like, okay, now I'm looking back at like some of the old legend decks, and the Kai one just had a bunch of cards that generically gain power, which is probably what they're going to end up doing with any theoretical nation set if we wanted them to be complete decks out of the box.
Well, keep in mind for the legend decks, it was all of history at that point. There was no standard and premium format yet. So for a legend deck or something like that, it's going to be a little harder with a smaller card pool. Now, if this is, like we were talking about, a year or more down the line, that's probably going to be different, but I don't have the imagination to just be like, this is what it could look like with these exact effects. I have no fucking idea. If you're listening to this in the future, should I have invested in Dogecoin? Was that the right thing to do? Let me know.
It is, in my opinion, that cryptocurrency is probably generally a bad call.
Yeah. I like how that was the first thing you said in like 15 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've just been... You have to call me out like that.
I'm sorry, it was funny.
You guys were talking about stuff, and I didn't really have much to add.
No, that's fair. That's just... it's funny. Like, that's it.
See, I'm usually the guy who doesn't say anything for 15 minutes, but this was my topic idea, so I had to actually do, like, research this time.
Yep. And I think it was a good idea. Do we have anything else we want to add to it? Because I've pretty much ran myself out.
One thing that kind of concerns me with the I was going to mention earlier that Magic has kind of a similar thing called a Deck Builder's Toolkit. That it has like random comments and uncomments that are like quote playable end quote, or like at least like cards that aren't embarrassing. And then it'll have like a million basic lands basically.
Okay.
And then some packs in it, dice, whatever. So like these aren't uncommon for most games. They cost $20 in Magic, I think.
Okay.
But they're okay. It's just like they don't really get you to a deck generally.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like here's some basic lands and other stuff.
So you kind of buy it, kind of like the way you would with the Gold Series in Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's like I want packs and I'm hoping for stuff. Not
right.
I'm getting into the game and I need somewhere to start.
Yeah. I guess that is a distinction we would have to make with this. Like, do we want this to be, like, a tool for veterans to get, like, cards that they need, or do we want this to be, like, a mid-tier introduction where, the start deck is just, like, the very, very basic way to start the game, and then you have things like the Legend deck where you can get someone into the game at a higher level.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. So, like, either for TCG veterans or people who are like, I want to try a new hobby, and I was into gardening, or whatever. And you're like, okay,
or just people who, like, maybe played Vanguard before, got out for a little while, and now they're coming back to it. Right, where they, like, just people who already know card games and can generally get the idea of Vanguard without needing to play Baby's First Clan.
Mm-hmm. Which, as we all know, is Bastion.
Yes. So, I guess that is another question we would have to ask is, for a special series product, like, are we targeting, like, a mid-tier entry product? Or are we targeting more just, like, straight reprints for veteran players who already know what they want?
I say the latter. I think that, like, the Baby's First Clan thing, that's what trial decks are for. And I think for something like this, where typically if it's going to cost you more, if it's like Ezel Senpai was saying, like $25 to $50, to somebody who's like, I want to try this trading card game, you're more likely to give it a shot at $4 than at $50.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
So I'm okay with them like having a little bit higher barrier of entry in terms of like knowing what you want.
Okay. Well, in that case, like, deciding what they would put in the deck is probably easier, because then I would still just have each ride line just as a way for players to get up. If we're just targeting, like, people who already play Vanguard and are either, like, looking to get something different or trying to find essential cards, then, you know, just, like, having a set of each ride line plus, like, a high rarity staple card from the past, so, like, there's, like, the triple R in the current set too, that could, for Orthus, that could, like, retire Shadow Army to retire an opponent's card and draw or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, have cards like that in there that are, like, fairly high rarity, seems like they'll be staples for a while.
Yeah. You could also do a thing where if you have... You have it split, like, now that you have the only 6 nations, you can have, like, a box for the whole nation. Here's your Brandgate box, here's your Stoicheia box.
Yeah, I mean, that is the premise we came into this with.
For some reason I got it into my head that it was everybody, and it was more like a Gold Series where it was just kind of like, you get what you get, or it's huge,
no,
and
I think
it's everybody.
this was being pitched, or at least the way Ezel Senpai was pitching it was as, like, you know, you get a Dragon Empire, a Dark Sage, a Keter, Stoicheia, and a Brandgate box, and, you know, each of these individual boxes for the nations will have, like, all of the essentials that you would want. So, you know, let's say you wanted to try out Brandgate. You already play Vanguard, and you wanted to try out Brandgate, but it's stupid expensive. You can buy this $50 box and get, you know, your Orphis, whatever that grade 2 Cardinal Noid from set 2 was, or whatever.
The Noid from Dominus. And,
you know, maybe something like a Bulbul Mine. I assume that will be relevant for a while.
Probably. At least you don't need to run Bulbul Mine in prison. It's nice.
Yeah, it makes the deck so much cheaper. You just have to worry about Aggro Rouge being like $10.
Yeah, which is not too bad. I noticed that's like a thing in a lot of decks. You have your like ride line staples, which if it's outside the TD, they're usually about 10, and then you have like a random double R that's like $9 to $10.
Bulbul Mine, which was funny.
Okay, Bulbul Mine, Gundarum, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that would be good. If they were to theoretically make something like a Legend deck again, what would that look like in D era? That would be interesting.
I think you would have...
Because I feel like at some point, like we've said before, inevitably at some point, one of the ride lines is going to be underrepresented. We want to see a Legend deck type thing for, like, the under-supported ride lines in the future, because we know it's almost certainly going to happen.
Okay, here's my idea. Legend deck Katsumi Morikawa. It's Bastion, because duh. And it's got a bunch of new grade 3s in it. And that's how you bring it back into the anime. And I will now jump off a cliff like I rightly deserve to do. So
I just want to say, Overdress, like the first core of Overdress was not great.
The first core meaning the TDs or the set or what?
No, the first core like of the anime.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was not good.
I imagine.
I really wanted it to be good. I liked the slice of life idea, and it just wasn't.
Well, it would be good if they like actually went into it, but they don't. They're like kind of like half doing like a million things and doing nothing overall.
Mm-hmm. And then and then it's like Donji doing chores like as an episode.
Right. See, basically these episodes are about nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the earlier one, Donji doing chores episodes, like basically never happened. Like it didn't matter if they happened or not. Nothing that occurred in those episodes was ever referenced again.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's a thing later where they're like, "Are you gonna be on a fishing boat for a week randomly?" Like it was almost self-aware, but it wasn't.
And then like you have like I think so like who is the main character is supposed to be Yuyu.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the show only revolves around Donji.
And then for a couple episodes, what's his name? The blonde guy, Tohoima?
Toya.
Sorry.
Toya.
Toya.
Yeah. So then there's Toya, who like randomly, like obviously is like the antagonist, I guess, of the series. Ends up being. There's not really an antagonist for most of the series because the series doesn't really have conflict. For most of it anyway.
And then they almost have conflict, and then they don't.
Right. It's just, how do I say this? It's just I don't even know how much time has passed in their world over this series, right?
Well,
like I have actually no idea how long Yu has been going to that amusement park.
Yeah, like things that almost happened that
you could literally tell me any amount of time, and I would believe it.
In the year 25.
You know what I mean, though?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was almost the, like, we're shutting down the theme park, and then they didn't. There's Toya's conflict with his family for one episode. There's Donji's quitting, then he isn't. There's Megumi and Tamari's weird conflict about Donji being missing. There's the Sengoku Jidai weird, like, all the teams are fighting for territory thing, but then there isn't. Like, it's just everything that could have been a thing isn't a thing, and it bothers me. Oh, and then you use weird, like, supposed conflict with his family, but everything's fine. Like, just fuck, dude. There's no conflict in this movie.
It is mostly infuriating.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
It's like
Sounds like it.
It's like plot blue balls.
It's just like there's just no idea. Like I honestly just think they have no idea what they're doing.
I mean, they had.
It's that simple.
Knowing how long animation takes, that's what makes that even more infuriating.
Okay, see, that's the thing with the Japanese animation industry is you would think that they had a long time, but they really didn't.
I thought animation for like one episode of animated TV is like what, 9 months?
Not in Japan.
How long is it in Japan?
You'd be amazed how behind schedule Japanese production is. Like
Do you know how South Park was made like week by week?
Yeah.
That's closer.
Yeah, much closer. Well, there's a good chance that it might not have actually been done that week too, which is how we get recap episodes.
Damn. So
No, the Japanese anime industry is like actually horrible.
that's crazy. Like South Park, it was all paper cutouts and then computer generated with like pre-rendered models and stuff. This is like hand drawn. It looks like.
Yes.
And pretty well drawn. Like the animation's pretty okay for what it is. That's nuts.
Yeah, like the majority of Japanese anime is done like week to week, if that. And so if a show got announced like a year in advance, you can be sure that that company is probably working on 20 other projects that they had announced years before, and that the whatever project that they just announced now won't actually be worked on until right before it airs.
Well, that sucks.
It's very cool.
So
Yeah.
I guess we can be assured that if they do one of those boxes, they're gonna think of how to fill it like a day before they start printing the cards.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
Also, just a random question, but like, would you prefer they make like more legend decks instead of encounter cards?
Yes.
In the sets.
Holy shit, yes.
Yeah, because like that was something I thought about really quickly, where I'm like, wait, we just had like Overlord and Phantom Blaster encounter cards where they're like shoving them into these sets and taking up space. What if they just made those into legend decks instead, so we could have like filler product between sets and not annoy everyone, or annoy everyone less?
I guess. I don't know if they're going to count the encounter guys as the third ride line for Cater and Dragon Empire, though. I assume they would, but...
I would want... If they've already gone down this direction, I would want them to, especially with, new ride lines in set 3. Mm-hmm. It would be kind of dumb
to not do that, yeah.
Yeah.
But...
Or, like, alternatively, make it so that Eugene-based cards rely more on open circles, and so that you could just play generic retire cards in Overlord and still have it function as a coherent deck.
But that would involve foresight and good planning. So, ball's in your courts, I guess. Alright. Anything else we want to say before we do the end spiel?
No, I think that's actually everything this time.
Okay, well, before you quit out of your Spotify, thanks for listening, and, support the show, patreon.com/Nexus at Night. Thanks to our $10 patrons, Darren, Cole, and Josh. $5 or more donation a month, you get a free-ass bonus episode every week, where we have guests on sometimes and mostly just talk about the stuff we don't get to talk about here. And then you can find us on Twitter or Instagram at Nexus at Night. And where can they find you guys?
You can find me on Twitter at Wiggums, 2Gs2Vs.
You can find me at Plasma Eclipse.
And then you can find me at Atlas Novak, Twitter, Instagram, or you can check out my new podcast, Generation Dan, where me and 2 other comedians from different generations talk about stuff that should divide us, and mostly funny shit. That's on pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts, and I tweet it out on the Nexus at Night Twitter. So you'll see it. And until next time, I was Atlas.
I'm Matt.
I'm Root Beer.
And have a good night, everybody.